Hello guys, a very warm welcome. So today's session is on the introduction about Google Cloud Platform, and also we look into practically how we can actually use this particular cloud platform specifically on the GCP, creating a virtual machine. So today's agenda is talk about the GCP architecture, the GCP services, how the services are segregated, and how we can access the platform directly. So here you can see the slide. Welcome to Cognitia, part of Collabra, world's leading talent transformation company. What they have to offer: 1,50,000 plus professionals trained worldwide, a very reputed brand name in the market. 7,000 plus industry veterans as instructors. They have a presence in 55 plus countries and a subsidiary of a Collabra. That is about the Cognitia. Cognitia provides machine learning and AI, microservices, RPA, robotic process automation, Internet of Things, big data analytics, DevOps, cloud computing, cybersecurity, professional development skills, and the BI technologies. That was the introduction about Collabra and Cognitia, which is a subsidiary of Collabra. Let's look into what we have in today's session. Introduction to GCP, and in this agenda, we would be covering up what is Google Cloud Platform, GCP services and benefits. Why do we use GCP? There are different cloud providers in the market, so why we should select GCP only? What is Google Compute Engine? How to create a VM using Compute Engine? Overview of Cloud Shell and CLI tools through access so that we can access the Google console. Then we'll look into one demo, we'll discuss on it, and there will be a question answer session as well. But before that, we will first understand the fundamentals of cloud computing. So before moving to Google Cloud Platform, first of all, we need to understand what is the meaning of cloud computing. And I believe some of you guys are experienced on cloud. Some of you might be completely new. They might be working on different technologies and they wanted to move into the cloud platforms. But I believe most of you guys must have heard about a name of a technology called cloud computing. The cloud computing word has to be broken into two parts. One is cloud and the other one is computing. The computing is basically a machine or an application that has the capability to do a computational task. Any example of a computing machine, a simplest computing machine? I would say a calculator. Calculator is a computing machine, right? It can do the calculations based on the instruction. If I go further to it, let's say a computer or a laptop, a desktop, your mobile devices, they are kind of a computing machines only. And when I go with a broader terminology and talk about the organizations, then the computing would come into with respect to the servers, switches, network technologies, or we call it that place as a data center also, a facility where all these components are resided. That is called as a data center. When these computing machines, you can say, or applications or technologies are available on the network, which can be remotely accessed, that is called as a cloud. And hence we join both the words cloud computing. That means computing machines available on the network, remotely accessible, is called as a cloud computing. A very basic, a very simple to understand definition of cloud computing. Cloud computing you would find in everywhere. On a daily basis, if you are a smartphone user, you are accessing cloud computing on a daily basis in the form of app access, in the form of a web access. They're all a cloud computing platforms only. But here, when we talk about a cloud computing, the perception comes with respect to the industry, with respect to the organizations that where we work, because there the terminology is widened. It is more scalable. So with respect to that, there are large cloud computing providers in the market. Those who provide us all these computing machines in the form of services, which is accessible by everyone. Just that you have to create a subscriptions. And some of the cloud players that are available in the market are, you must have heard about Amazon Web Services, which is called as an AWS. You have Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, the one which we are going to discuss, Rackspace, VMware, and DigitalOcean, many more. Alibaba is also there. IBM Cloud is there. Likewise, Oracle is also, they are also offering cloud. Cisco is offering their private cloud. So likewise, there are so many cloud players. But when we talk about cloud computing, primarily we discuss about three major cloud computing players in the market. And that is specifically related to the public cloud. The biggest cloud providers are Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. They have a very big presence across the globe. Lot of organizations are using their services. Now, when we talk about a platform, a cloud platform is a place through which we access all those computing services. And that platform is being provided by some company like Google, like Amazon, like Microsoft. They have prepared that platform. They have put the services on their platform. And we as a consumer or an end user try to access the services from that particular platform. And that's why we call it as, okay, we are accessing a Google Cloud Platform, the place where we can access the cloud services. Obviously, we access everything on the cloud in the form of services only because it's something which we are accessing remotely. So we don't have access of a physical server or a physical computing device. We have an access remotely. Hence, it has to be provided in a service format or in a virtualized format. All right. All these details we will cover up in more detailed architecture once we start with the complete GCP training. So what is GCP? GCP stands for Google Cloud Platform, a place where we access Google provided cloud services. The Google Cloud Platform enables developers to build, test, and deploy applications on Google's highly scalable, and reliable infrastructure. So it says that platform is a mechanism through which we access Google's machines, which are available in their facility, in their data centers. The Google Cloud Platform is a set of modular cloud-based services that allow you to create anything from an application, a simple website, or a complex applications. So using this platform, you can build your softwares, your applications, you can access the hardware resources required to support your application. You can build some complex applications also, mobile applications. You can build some AI, IoT tools and apps also. Likewise, many things you can do on this particular platform. Now, before GCP or AWS, what was happening? Before Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform, if you have to build your website, if you have to create a complex application, you have to host it somewhere. You have to deploy it somewhere. So earlier, what used to happen before these technologies, the organizations used to have their own infrastructure, own data centers, and they used to have the developers, the engineers in their data center working and supporting their application, deploying and supporting the application. Considering, let's take an example of a financial organization. Managing a technology or an infrastructure is a cost to them. It is not going to generate a revenue for them. That's not their main focus of business line. But since at those times there were no GCP, no AWS available, no cloud computing technology available, so they have to invest into it. That was cost to the company. With the availability of these platforms, the organizations can focus more on their current business functionality and they can outsource backend application or technology infrastructure, use the cloud platforms to deploy those applications. So in that, they save a lot of cost. They save in terms of the infrastructure. that they have to purchase, the facility that they have to purchase to manage that infrastructure, the staff they have to purchase, they have to keep to manage that infrastructure. All those things are read with the availability of the cloud platform. So these are some use cases, some real-time business functionalities with respect to any of the cloud platform, be it Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure. Now, before understanding the architecture of GCP, one of the major advantages that I could think of with respect to the cloud computing is that the availability of the infrastructure, which is available 24 cross 7 at a lower cost. Just imagine that, okay, you have an idea in your mind and you are trying to implement that idea. Okay, you are a developer, you can develop the softwares, applications, but you think that, okay, where exactly I should test those applications, or how I should proceed, if you have any idea. So you would think that, okay, for that I have to first purchase one server, and then on that server you need to set that server. First of all, there will be a one-time cost for purchasing it. Then you have to set up that server. You have to add an operating system in that server. You have to add the packages, necessary packages that support the software or an application, and then you have to deploy your application. After that, you have to make it available on the network. And then other dependencies, you have to rely with some third-party services or the tools. So a lot of multiple combinations you have to do. And that is going to take some time. First of all, you need to buy and procure a server also. That is itself going to take some time. Now, with the availability of these platforms, it says that, okay, the architecture is available, the infrastructure is available 24 cross 7. You can access it anytime. You just open up your account and start creating the servers, deploy your application quickly, and you would see that almost in no time you will be in production. Your app will be live without managing any infrastructure, without spending a one-time cost, without looking into the power management and the server setup and all. Everything you will have it over using a web application. What is a prerequisite? You just need a good internet connectivity. All right, so that is an advantage of using the cloud platforms. And these platforms, the infrastructures are so big, they are spread it across the globe. Lot of servers, the networking devices are available in the data centers that you can scale. If you want to increase your server capacity, you can do it at any time. Then comes the costing. How do you pay? There are many different ways you can basically pay for the resources that you use on the GCP. One is pay as you go model or pay as you use. Let's assume that I consumed GCP resources for 30 minutes. I'll be chargeable only for that much duration. Then I can stop the resources. I can restart at any time. So I don't have to pay any one-time cost. If I go with, let's say, for a larger duration, I go for, let's say, 1 year subscription, I would have some discounted rates also. So these are some of the benefits of GCP. Likewise, many of the other benefits you guys have discussed also. But with every technology, and let's be practical, that with respect to every technology, there are disadvantages also. Let's discuss some disadvantages. So any disadvantage that you can think of with respect to the cloud computing technology? Though the disadvantages are very less as compared to the advantages, but there are. In that way, it becomes the responsibility of an architect or an administrator working on the GCP that how secure they are planning their solutions. And I would say that in that case, there may be some vulnerabilities in the solution design, but for that, we cannot say that, okay, the cloud is not that much secured. There can be a human errors also, or we can say that, okay, that framework is the architecture designed by an administrator or an architect is not that foolproof. So that is a questionable thing with respect to the security, as most of the control of the security is with the administrators only. Coming to the data security, and I do agree that data security can be an issue, because first of all, you are going to keep your data on some third-party servers. And these third-party servers are owned by, again, by a private organization based out from a different country or a location. And there can be some data compliance with respect to the country's policies also. In some countries, it is the compliance says that you cannot put the country's data outside the country's server, right? So that can be an issue. In that way, you just have to keep your data centers. The other part could be for the financial and the banking firm. They may think that the databases which they put it on the third party servers, the databases are the most critical items, or you can say a critical part of any banking or a financial firm, and they may hesitate to migrate on the cloud platform, considering that there might be an issue with the hacking, or the data can be leaked, which is a critical thing. And for those issues, we plan for a hybrid solution. Data integrity can be a issue. Yes, correct. Apart from that, security and data security, any other disadvantage? What about latency? Yeah, bandwidth dependency has to be there. You cannot select a particular location where you want to keep your servers or the application. You have to go for with only those locations that are provided by the cloud platform. So if I want that, okay, the server should be located nearby by my place or wherever the users are, I could not go with that. I just have to go with whatever is available. The other dependency is that internet connectivity has to be very good. Though these days some services may run offline also, but again, the internet connectivity has to be very good. Then comes the policies with respect to every country globally. So these are some of the disadvantages, but as I said, there are only few, and you cannot call them as a complete disadvantage also, right? So the advantages, if you look into, they will be, there are so many advantages. You can have, you can do cost optimization, you can have a resilient architecture, you will have a flexible architecture, elasticity is there. You can basically 24 cross 7 the services are available. You can scale up, scale down the resources anytime you want. Security is something which you can plan it as per your requirement, and some of these are the advantages of using the cloud platform. All right, so now let's look into how the GCP architecture is. So again, when we talk about a GCP, we are being given in the form of a service. We access the platform in the form of a service, but in the backend, they have their own physical data centers that are residing in different geographical locations, right, which are interconnected over the internal private network of Google Cloud. Regions, that are the first thing with respect to the GCP architecture. Regions are what? They are the collection of zones. Zones are nothing but they are the actual data centers. Data center is a place, a facility where the organization keep their computing components together, right? I'll show you the image of a data center also, that will come in the next slide, those who are not aware of it. But right now you can assume that, okay, you buy some facility, or you have a location or an office where you keep all your servers, networking and switches devices, and then you host your applications from there itself. That is what the data center is. So on GCP, zones are called as the data centers. Data centers zones are basically nothing but a data center. All these zones combined together at a particular geographical location are called as a region. You can understand that zones are the subset of a region. Zones are part within the region only. Now, what is a region? Region can be a US Central region, US East region, US West region, Asia Pacific region, European region, likewise. And in those regions, there will be a cluster of data centers which are called as a zones. So regions are the collection of zones, specific geographical locations where you can run resources. Regions are interconnected using Google's global meshed backbone network. So all these regions are interconnected over a private network that is managed by the Google. You can call it as an MPLS also. Those who are from the networking background, they will understand that. Zones, isolated deployment areas in a region, and your resources can be regional, zonal, or in some cases, you can have multi-regional resources also created. Now, this is a Google network, and you can see how the dots that are present are the point of presence. The black dots, which you can see, are the POPs, the point of presence. And using a network fiber, all these are interconnected. So this is a presence of Google's infrastructure across the globe, and all that infrastructure over a fiber optic cabling or a network, they are connected internally. And that is a very good, you can say, or an advantage of using the Google Cloud Platform. Now, when we'll do the comparison between AWS, GCP, and all, you'll find that in the GCP, though any resource that you create, you have to select a region that is agreeable. But all these regions, all the resources can be accessed over a multi-region capability also. That is something which is missing in the AWS. AWS is more, you can consider it as more of a distributed kind of a cloud, where you have to specifically go and select every region and then start accessing the services. There are dependencies that a resource in one region will not work in another region likewise. But that is something which is not in the Google Cloud. Google Cloud, what happens, you have to select a region, but the multi-region resources are inter-accessible also. They are interconnected just because of this fiber network connectivity. So that is an advantage. It is more of a centralized kind of an architecture. Any region across the globe, you can access it and you can put your resources there. Now, Google Global Cache Edge Nodes or the GGC are basically used for content delivery. They are the cache servers of Google. Now, what are cache? That is something in details we'll discuss later. Now, this is one of the image of the data center is. So here you can see these are the racks, and inside the racks there are servers that are inserted, and all these servers are interconnected. So for the past 15 years, Google has been building out the fastest, most powerful, highest quality cloud infrastructure on the planet. And they say that their infrastructure, their data centers are also green. They are more eco-friendly data centers as they try to generate the powers for the data center primarily using windmills and the other solar energy and all also in some part of the globe as well. Now, why GCP? We have discussed about why cloud computing. So why we require a GCP? Google's ability to build, organize, and operate a huge network of servers which are interconnected over a fiber optic cables. So fiber optic cables are basically a physical connectivity from one location to another, and that is remarkable. Means it is very difficult to achieve, but they have done that with an efficiency and speed that rocks physics on its heels. This is what makes Google Google. So we know that Google is most widely used search engine also. Whatever technology they produce, they develop, it is a very high technology or a very widely used technology. So whatever the infrastructure they have in their data center, that is up to date. If anything which is available, there are upgrades available, the Google Cloud would be the first one to actually implement them in their data center. So you will get the most up-to-date infrastructures as well. Its physical network, it's thousands of fiber miles, and those many thousands of servers in aggregate add up to mother of all the clouds. So if I do a comparison, I would say that Google, Azure, and AWS, they are very big in their infrastructure across the globe. AWS also have a very cloud infrastructure. Some says that AWS is the largest cloud infrastructure as well. So that is something a different thing altogether. So when you build on Google Cloud Platform, you are building on Google's fast, scalable, and highly reliable infrastructure. So this is the back panel of the servers, which are available in the data center, the backside of the rack servers. So you can innovate and iterate faster since you don't have to worry about the underlying operational aspects of your business. Now let's look into some of the comparisons with respect to GCP and AWS. If you do a price comparison, AWS is more expensive as compared to GCP, and that is I have also observed that. First of all, when you use a GCP, it gives you $300 free credit, which is a very good thing. You can convert it into your currencies also, and then estimate is somewhere around, let's say if I convert it to INR, it will be somewhere around 21,000 INR. We get it as a free credit. So that says that you can practice on the GCP till $300. You will not be charged, you will not be billed any service you use. And after that, there will be a minute-wise billing. How many minutes you run a particular service or a resource, there will be a billings with respect to that. That is something which is not available on AWS. AWS does not give you free credits. You can create your AWS account, you can go for a free trial subscription also. But in a free trial subscription in AWS, it doesn't mean that there will be no charges. Some services are free tier for some time duration. Other services, when you access them, there might be some billing associated. And the bill will be available on a monthly basis. The charges of running a service in AWS is bit more expensive as compared to the GCP. And hence, if you do a cost comparison with respect to, let's say, a server, a basic or a medium type server, we run it either on the AWS or on the GCP, there will be around 30 to 40% difference, which is high. But that doesn't mean, I'm not saying that AWS is not a good cloud. AWS has its own advantages, and obviously we all know that in when we talk about cloud computing, AWS pioneered the cloud computing technology. AWS was the company that actually introduced cloud computing to the world. So the pricing is basically definitely GCP is less expensive as compared to the AWS. And if we do other comparison with respect to boot time of a virtual machine or a server, you will find that the boot time of a server created on the Google Cloud is lesser as compared to the AWS. You can have higher read-write speed as measured in MB per second. Higher the read-write speed, better the efficiency of the server. When we talk about a network comparison with GCP and the AWS, GCP servers give a higher bandwidth. Higher bandwidth means they are faster, again, faster in uptime and downtime. So quickly you can upload your content, quickly you can download anything from the internet. They give you a faster bandwidth when you access your virtual machines or the servers. If we do the comparison with respect to latency, lower latency is better and means shorter wait time. Latency is what? Lesser the latency, faster the efficiency or the accessibility of a server. So low latency is always better and means shorter wait time. Quickly we can access the servers. So as per the comparison also, it says the Google Cloud offers lower latency as compared to the AWS. So these are some of the advantages with respect to the GCP. Cost is a major factor as compared to the AWS. But again, as I said, that AWS has its own advantage. If you see the AWS console, the interface, you will find it that it is more premium. It is more easily accessible, and it gives you more security in terms of creating your solutions. Lot of organizations have already migrated on these cloud platforms. So that's a separate thing altogether. Now, again, why to use a GCP? If you run on a Google's infrastructure, build on the same infrastructure that allows Google to run millions of search results in milliseconds. Their Google Cloud is also developed on the same infrastructure that the Google search engine is developed on. And we all know that how Google search engine is important for us. It serves 6 billion hours of YouTube video per month and provides storage for 425 million Gmail users. It has a global network, a redundant network, and an innovative infrastructure as well. Second is mix and match services, virtual machines, managed platform, different type of storages, different type of databases, analytics services, artificial intelligence. You can create artificial intelligence models on the cloud, IoT models on the cloud, blockchains, likewise. For your architecture, for your website or an application, the GCP offers you compute services, storage services, and then security services, database services. Likewise, the services are segregated based on their functionalities. The other advantage of using a GCP, and that I just looking at the performance, is that it is very easily manageable also. Any cloud platform. If there are any errors, the troubleshooting is very easy and there is lesser time in doing the troubleshooting. You would find that quickly you are going to resolve the issues because there is only a single platform through where you have to do the troubleshooting. Okay, so troubleshooting management of the resources is very easy on the cloud platform. That is another advantage. So Google's compute infrastructure gives you consistent CPU, memory, and the disk performance. The network and edge case servers that we discussed in the architecture responses rapidly to your users across the globe. So you get CPU, you get memory, you get disk, you get global network, you get transparent maintenance. Maintenance is very easy on the cloud. There are certain monitoring tools that keep on giving you the reports and the metrics, and likewise you can manage your cloud resources. Then it says you can get the support as and when you need. Now, what we mean by getting the support, that means there is a 24/7 phone support. In case if you're not able to find anything, be it with respect to a technical issue or a billing issue, you can call them anytime. Then there are certain free communities also created where you can post your questions, queries. You will get a reply. So with a worldwide community of users, partner ecosystem, and premium support packages, Google provides a full range of resources to help you get started and grow. How do you want to create your account? You can call them. Any issue with your account, billing, or technical issue, they will assign an engineer for that. So that is with respect to the GCP. Now, any free tier account. No, there is no free tier account. It all whenever you create a GCP account, it gives you $300 as a credit. You can use it till you completely exhaust your $300. After that, there will be charges. See, AWS free tier means that it doesn't mean the AWS free trial account doesn't mean that all the services on the AWS are free. No. The type of an account you created in the GCP console, that is also considered as a free trial only. The AWS free trial account means that you would not have a support of engineers. You would not be able to call them for any kind of a technical issues. That is something which you need to manage it on your own. It is not that a free trial means that you will not be charged. Okay, but there are no credits that AWS offers. Google Cloud, when you create an account, they provide you some credits. You can have a GCP account using your credit and the debit card also, correct? These days, make sure that in your debit card this recurring auto deduction is enabled. These days, what I have seen is that the Google is not accepting a debit cards, and they are primarily asking for the credit cards. But that is something which you can report it to them also. So ideally, primarily, if you have a credit card, then it is no issue. For debit cards, you can check whether they are allowing it or not. RuPay debit card is not going to work. Even they are not accepting these days the master debit card also for some banks. For some banks, they accept it. Now we'll move into the Amex credit card will work. Yeah, guys. So credit card is acceptable. Debit cards, you have to check into what they are accepting. I tried it a few days back. with one of the debit card, master debit card, that was not accepted. So I used a credit card in that way. So some banks debit card, it should accept it, right? So you can try it. I've not used a Citibank debit card, but definitely if you have a credit card, then any credit card will work. Visa should be easily acceptable. ICICI Visa debit card should not be a problem, I believe. I'm the one which I'm using right now is using an ICICI Visa only. See, they may ask you that sometimes what happens is that in your debit cards there are blockade. They are blocked with respect to the international transactions. In that way, it will not accept. They may say that okay, your account or your debit card is not the feature is not available with the respect to the international transaction. Likewise, so that is something which you need to discuss with your bank. If that is available, then I don't think there should be a challenge with respect to any debit card other than the RuPay payment gateway. You can try it with the RuPay. I have never tried it. So coming to the cloud computing service models, and this is with respect to every cloud. It is not with respect to only Google Cloud. The service models you have to go through and understand with respect to any cloud. Now, first of all, here in the screen, you can see three service model: infrastructure as a service, IaaS, the platform as a service as PaaS, and the software as a service as a SaaS. It is not confined to only these three service models. These are the pillars of a cloud computing service models. Further, more segregation is also there, and that is with respect to the smaller clouds. When we discuss about mostly about AWS or Google Cloud, we talk about these three service models because they are the very big clouds, so they lie in all these three service model categories. The service model, first of all, we need to understand what do we mean by a service model. Since these cloud platforms are giving us or we are accessing the cloud platforms in the form of a service only, so they are actually selling their services, right? And how they are selling their services based on the categorization. So they have created a service model kind of a categorization, that how do you want to access a service, what is the purpose of it, how do you want to use that service, and based on that there are categorizations, and that is what the service models means. The service models, primarily there are three types of service models. One is the IaaS, second is the PaaS, and the third one is the SaaS service model or the software as a service. The infrastructure as a service or the IaaS service model, you can say it is the most widely used type of a service model. As the name suggests, infrastructure as a service. You access a direct infrastructure of a cloud platform in the form of a service or remotely. And over that, what type of layers you want to add is something which the administrator has to decide. For example, if you want to create a server on the cloud, you can do that. You will get the access of a server. Now, over that server, what you're going to do? Why do you require a server? The cloud platform has given you a server so that you can use the CPU resources of the server. You can use the memory of a server. You can use the hard drive attached to a server. But how you are going to use is something which the user or the administrator has to decide. So that means obviously if you access the server, so over that you would deploy an operating system also. When you access the services, you access, let's say you create a virtual machine, you create a server, you access it in the form of an infrastructure as a service. Now over that, if you have to deploy an operating system, so which operating system you have to deploy, whether you want to go for a Windows OS or a Linux OS, likewise. That is something which the administrator or the user has to decide. Over the operating system, let's say if you want to deploy any middleware, any packages, and then the applications, all those things will be taken care by the administrator. So the cloud provider is going to say that, okay, my task is only to manage till the server and the virtual machine. Over that is something, whatever you want to deploy, you can take care of it. And along with that, define the security measures. We'll not manage that part. So that is what the infrastructure as a service. So that means they are giving you the infrastructure. You just pay for the usage of that service. So there are pricing associated with respect to every type of a server that you use and the duration of that as well. So one of the example with respect to Google Cloud, as I mentioned that the Google Cloud, AWS or Azure, they have so many services listed in their platforms that they lie in all the three type of a service models. So that is SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. So if I have to take an example of an IaaS as a service with respect to the Google Cloud, I would go with Google Compute Engine. That is one of the service within the GCP, primarily used for creating the servers, or you can call it as a virtual machine. What are virtualization, virtual machines? That is something we'll discuss later. So they are renting out the services, or you call it as a selling services, because services we are going to purchase it. We will not keep the services. It's not a product that we are going to buy it and then we keep it in our place. It is something, the services we buy, and for that we pay for it. So you call it as a selling the services or renting out the services. The ideology is same. The understanding should be same. Now coming to the second type of a service model, and that is called as a platform as a service. It is above the IaaS. Why? Because here the cloud provider gives you the access of a platform rather than the infrastructure. So where does the platform resides? Plus platform resides over the infrastructure, right? So they give you that, okay, you access a platform directly. The infrastructure will manage it. Even the platform also will manage it. You don't have to take care of an infrastructure where the platform is running. So when you access a service model in the form of a platform as a service, the responsibilities of an administrator or the users are decreased. They are not that much as compared to the infrastructure as a service. Most of the things are managed by the cloud provider. Who has to use a platform as a service? I would say that mostly the developers who only wants to focus more on their who only wants to focus on the development environment, coding, and deploy those softwares on the cloud. They should go for a platform as a service, because for the developers, they don't want to spend their energy in maintaining the infrastructure or the networking with respect to that infrastructure. So instead, better is that all those things will be taken care by the cloud provider. The developer will focus on developing a code, and to test it, the developer is going to quickly deploy that code using a platform as a service and then see an output how it is working. So that is what the platform as a service is. One of the example of a platform as a service with respect to Google Cloud, there is one service inside the Google Cloud which is called as a Google App Engine. Now, what do you mean by a Google App Engine? A Google App Engine is a service where you bring your app, click on a deploy button, put your applications, and then the Google Cloud is going to deploy your application automatically on the underlying infrastructure. Now, what is that infrastructure? We don't know. This is something which Google Cloud is managing. So that is what the platform as a service is. It gives you the platform where you can deploy your applications, but you would not have an access of an infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure where the application will be executed. You would not have an access of a compute resources. You would also not have an access of an operating system, because the platform resides over these layers. So they build a platform and they say that, okay, the underlying infrastructure is ours. We are maintaining it. You just bring your application, deploy it, and then we are automatically going to deploy that application in the underlying infrastructure. That is what the platform as a service means. And the example is App Engine, Kubernetes Engine, right? Cloud Function. These are some of the GCP services that are the example with respect to the platform as a service. In the infrastructure as a service, you have an access of the underlying resources. You have access of a virtual machine. You can plan how many CPUs you want for your server. You want to go with 2 CPUs, 4 CPUs, how much internal RAM, how much hard drive you want to use it. All those are the compute resources that you can control in the infrastructure as a service, but not in the platform as a service. The next type of a service model is the software as a service. Now, what do you mean by a software as a service? This is the simplest service model. And when we say a simplest service model, that means almost no maintenance or no task in terms of administrating any infrastructure resources that needs to be done by the user. So we as an end user do not have to take care of a platform, take care of an infrastructure in the software as a service. As the name suggests, software as a service, that means the software is already existing on the cloud platform. The cloud platform is giving us a software which is already in a running state. We are just accessing the features of the software. How do we access those features? By creating a subscriptions. So one of the example would be, and this type of a service model is used by almost everyone. So some social media sites, what do you do? How do you access it? You create a username, email ID, and the password, and then you start the accessibility of this application. For example, Gmail, you create your user details and then you access the mail services. So Gmail is a kind of a software as a service. As an example, Dropbox, the social media sites, they are the example of a software as a service model. When we access Gmail, for example, that is a software we are accessing. But do we know that that software is running on which particular platform? Do we have an awareness? No, we don't know. That is something which Google has built in. What is in which development environment the Gmail software has been written? Has they used Java, .NET, or what kind of a framework? We don't know that. Those applications are running on what type of servers? What is the capacity of that server? Is it a 10 CPU, 14 CPU, or a larger server? We don't know that. So we don't know about the infrastructure where the software is running. We don't know about the platform where that software is initiated or running. We just access the software. And that's what the software as a service means, that all the things will be all taken care by the cloud platform. We just have to subscribe and start using the services offered by the software, and we pay for that. So that is what the software as a service model means. So likewise, with respect to these service model, there are categorizations done, and there are certain services which lie under the IaaS category, some services which lie in the PaaS category, and some in the software as a service category. Now, if you'll ask me a question that, okay, out of all these three service models, which service model I should be selecting in case of doing a cost optimization, which is cost optimized, or how much you can say that, which is the cheapest type of a service model. So I would say that IaaS, infrastructure as a service, is the most cheapest way of accessing any cloud resources, because here the cloud provider has to manage only the infrastructure. The rest of the things will be taken care by the user. Whereas in the case of a platform as a service, in the case of a software as a service, most of the things are managed by the cloud provider. So they have to deploy or put more resources also, and they charge for that, right? So that is with respect to the service models. And then later on, when you'll basically enroll for a full course, then there are deployment models also, which actually tells you how you can deploy your solutions on the cloud, what are the various ways of doing a deployment and all. The public cloud deployment, private cloud, hybrid cloud, community cloud, and all. These are the services. So basically, when you look into the GCP, when you log in into the GCP, you will find a different sections. There will be a compute section, storage section, machine learning section, big data section. In every section, there will be services. The services has to offer the functionality as its name. For example, when I go to a compute section in a cloud, whatever service I access under the compute section, that will be related to creating a server or server resources. If I go to a storage section, so the service that I access within the storage section, that will be related to anything with respect to storing the files or the using storage as a service. Likewise, for big data, there is a section for database also, and I can create a SQL database, no SQL database, different type of databases services are there. In the cloud platform, you have to select a category first, and within the category you have to select a service also. So that service will actually function as it is inside the category. So whatever the category the service is, that would be the functionality of that service. So in the compute section, if let's say if I log in into the GCP and then I look into the compute section, so I would find compute engine, which is primarily used, or we call it as a Google Compute Engine also, primarily used for creating a virtual machines and the servers. This is an example of infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Then you have container engine, app engine, cloud functions. So app engine and the cloud function, now you have Kubernetes engine also. They are the example of platform as a service. So if you want to use as a PaaS service or an IaaS, likewise you can select it. Then when you go to a storage, you have cloud storage for storing your files, cloud spanner, cloud data store, Firestore, and all those things. You have databases also. Likewise, the services are offered. So nothing is being accessed as a real-time infrastructure access. It is obviously in the form of a service that you need to access it. Right. So these are the, now coming to how do you access the cloud platform when we talk about a GCP. So there are various ways that you access the cloud platforms. One is, the simplest way is, or most widely you can say is, the graphical user interface or the web interface. So what you do is you go to the cloud console and then you access the services in the form of a GUI. I'll show you that. So I have already logged in into the cloud console. So this is how the GCP looks like. When you create your credentials, you have to use your Gmail IDs and then you can create your credentials. What you have to do is just go to Google, type GCP console, and then click on sign in or sign up, provide the details, the credit or the debit card details. 1 rupee they are going to deduct from your account, and that is also refundable, just to check whether your account is live or not. And after that, you can access the GCP. So this is an example of a web-based or a console-based access. And here you can see, if I scroll down, there are the section of the services. For compute, you have App Engine, Compute Engine, Kubernetes Engine, and all. Likewise, if I keep on scrolling, there is an option for storage, databases. So you just have to select a service and start using it, right? So all these in detail we will be discussing in a real-time course. So that is one way to access the cloud platform and the most widely used. That is basically, the console is the first step in terms of accessing the cloud. Then you can access the console in the form of a CLI also, or we call it as a cloud shell, where you can put your commands. You can use the resources with the command line. So cloud shell is an inbuilt functionality within Google Cloud. And from here, you have to activate a cloud shell. So if I click on activate cloud shell, it will open up a console. And from that console, I can use the command lines or the CLI. So here you can see it is connecting. There is other way also to connect to your cloud, and that is called as an SDK. These software developments. The cloud SDK, you have to download it on your system. And then you have to enable with respect to some authorizations and the keys also. Now with the cloud SDK, primarily used by the developers in terms of running their development environment. Otherwise, for the architects and the administrator, you don't require a cloud SDK. You can work on Cloud Shell or Cloud Console also. Apart from that, there are some APIs created. From the APIs also, you can access the cloud resources or use mobile application on your Android or the iOS. So these are the ways you can access. Now, how the pricing? API means application programmable interfaces. Some third-party softwares through which you can access the cloud resources. Just like you have a mobile application from a Play Store, you can download and then you can access the resources, right? So there are many APIs that are available. You can develop your APIs also, and from there you can access the cloud resources. So with respect to the pricing, Google offers innovative and customer friendly pricing. So you have a per second billing, sustained use discount, compute engine custom machine types, preemptible instances for cost saving. So likewise, there are various cost methods, but if you go with pay as you go or pay as you use model, there will be a per minute kind of a billing that would be happening when you use the resources. So that was with respect to the introduction with respect to the GCP, guys. Thanks for joining this webinar, and I hope you like this session.